before we get into actual SQL for this week, I just wanted to reiterate some things about Access with us jumping into SQL. Most of us have already had some experience with Access or Libre if you're using that in the class you had 2 quarters ago. I don't know exactly what you learned in there, but I know that you had tables and you had relationships and such. So while last week we talked about how to create tables and alter them and all that kind of stuff, I just wanted to reiterate that you can actually just use the GUI to create tables. And in that reiteration, on the left side here, I have the file that is for your homework. On the right side, I have a brand new database that I just created and named just for this demo. Okay, so say that, and this is actually not a bad exercise for you to do as well, is to say that we wanted to just recreate what the tiny database that we have over here and maybe look at some of the things of how it's created and what we could do better, what you should be doing to show off that you know what you're doing in your projects and in life. Okay, so anytime I look at an ERD or a database and I want to see what's kind of going on, what really helps is to look at the relationships first. And so here you can see we have 4 tables as shown there. See that they're all one-to-many relationships. You can see that enroll is an associative entity between students and courses. So what happens when students and courses collide, students enroll in courses, basically, right? And then we've got faculty over here that can teach in different courses. In this school, only 1 faculty can teach in each course. Okay, so if we want to recreate this, these are kind of the relationships that we need to keep in mind. We know that in order to create this middle table, it's better to have the outer tables done first. And so I basically usually just start on the outsides and work my way in. You can just create the tables in any order and stuff like this. It's the relationship order that really makes or breaks it. Okay, so keeping this in mind, I'm going to actually start with the faculty table. So when you double click it, you can see what already exists. So we can get a glance at their naming conventions for their IDs and all that kind of stuff. So it looks like there's a short list of different faculty ranks. We have different faculty names and departments. Because you are using this for your homework, I will point out, you can sort using this function. It's generally not best practice, but just to get an idea of what's going on in here, notice that you have different professors with the same name using in different departments. Okay, we've got 2 different Smiths in here. We have 2 different Adams. Okay, so when you're doing homework, don't get confused and think that Adams is the same person. We've got 2 different Professor Adams, 2 different Professor Smiths. These are all different professors, not one professor in multiple departments. Okay? You can tell that because they all have unique faculty IDs. All right. So just keeping that in mind, I'm going to resort this to faculty ID. As a side note, if we wanted to, because we know that there's a short list of faculty ranks, if we wanted to add another table here, a lookup table of faculty ranks, you could do that. You could spread this out more. You don't have to, but that would be one way of making sure that only valid entries are put in there. Another way you can do that is through domain constraints. If we added a lookup table, we could eventually even put in things like what differentiates the different instructor ranks. You know, some are tenured or whatever like that. Okay. All right. don't change. Okay, so in order to see what we need to see from the faculty table, we actually need to sort of right click it, go into design view. And I'm only going to walk through this in Access and not Libre, because Libre is not exactly the same, but very similar. It is mostly the concepts that I want you to be soaking in right now. Okay, so we're looking at the design view. These names don't always match what we see in the data view, so also keep that in mind. Over here, I'm going to create a table. I'm going to open it in design view. It wants you to save it right now. Notice that naming conventions, we're using all caps for the table names. Old school, they used to do like that, so differentiate the tables from queries and other things. So you'll see that. Okay. Also faculty, course, and role, student, they're all singular, so proper naming conventions. Here, the primary keys are identified. I believe in Access you have to actually tell it that is the primary key. Here, Access knows that we need at least one primary key in here, so it's doing that automatically for us. I'm gonna go ahead and type out my names here just to get them done. Okay. Notice auto number, and again, Access goes, hey, this is best practice. Let's do this. But we didn't do an auto number here. We did the super lame F101 or whatever, right? So we have to change that manually to short. And then you can go one by one through these and make sure that they match back and forth. So here, it's gonna validate and tell you that it has to be that, which I'm just gonna copy over like that. If you go into here, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know the expression rules that well. I definitely take from these example databases and apply them elsewhere. That is not my strength in in this stuff. You can add an error message there if you want. It's required because it is the ID. It's automatically indexed also, again, because it's the primary key. And Libre, I believe, does not automatically index it, but Access does. So if you want to index for Libre, I think you have to manually do it. Okay, so other than me complaining about the numbering scheme here, which we cannot change, what else would be good practice? It says optional. So again, this is part of the metadata of defining the business rules so we know what is appropriate for this. Oh, and see, like this, they actually don't have faculty rank. There's no validation rule for this. So if we wanted to add a validation rule as a business, we could add that here. We could also explain what this is. Same with department. We can make a short list of departments and add that as another table. We've seen that in other examples. So this would be primary department faculty is hired into, because a faculty member can teach outside of their department, right? Current title, status, yeah, last name, so we know that it's just the last name, not like a full name or a first name or anything like that. So we can do stuff like that. Sign faculty ID and spell check. There we go. So this with the descriptions is better than this without the descriptions. So little things you can add into your database to improve its usability by anybody else, and you 6 months or 6 weeks after you finish the class and you don't remember half the stuff from the class. So always good to add in those kind of notes for yourself. Okay, so I'm gonna hit Control S and save that. It'll also complain at you if you don't save it to save it. Okay, so the next one on that list was course. That one, it was connected to the FACID. We need to go ahead and make that column in there. And so I'm going to hit design view, and I'm going to go here and do this. Okay, so again, same deal. Here the faculty ID just gets added in. Course schedule, course room, short text, short text, short text. This one I have to change again. And then so on and so forth. Okay. This one, what is actually helpful if you put foreign key for faculty table, it's nice to put in stuff like that, especially if your IDs are super generic, just like ID. That can be very helpful to add that description in. So it's metadata description. And oh yeah, you can change the field sizes and stuff like that too. Okay, and we can even say like primary key. But for this, actually, this would be like the registration course. So we can say something like that. I'm gonna try to close it without saving it. It's gonna yell at me, yes, right? Okay, so we're partially there. If we go to database tools, we go to relationships. Here's our two tables to make the relationship. All you'd have to do is drag it. Now, a few things here. This is why it's very nice to name them the same name, because it's very easy to connect them. The Access already will guess like, hey, these have the same name. These are probably the two keys that you're talking about. If this is not the key, you can select the correct key from this list. But if it's the same name, it'll automatically do it for you, which is lovely. And go ahead and reinforce the referential integrity. And that way it's going to automatically uphold that stuff for you, so you don't have to worry about it when you're doing data entry. Cascade updates are good. So if the primary key changes on the faculty table, it's going to automatically update in the course, and there won't be any weird anomaly issues. We generally do not want to click the delete. That's the dangerous one, where if you delete something from one table, it's going to delete it everywhere, and that's not always what you want. So we're not going to click that generally. Okay. These you can make smaller so that you can fit everything. You can move these around to make it all fit nice in one spot, so you can organize your little ERD in here aesthetically. And so when someone pops this open, it'll actually be easy to read and make sense. Okay, that can be very important when we get hairy with a lot of tables. Okay, yeah, switch out of that. Okay, so I'm gonna create the student one real quick, and then we're gonna do the enroll. Okay, so table design student. Okay, stu ID, stu last. Oh. Okay, short text. do last, do first, do major, do credits. Okay, here we've got our first number field. So we're gonna do that. I'm not adding in all the validations and stuff right now because I already showed you how to do that in general. I'm not gonna add any more of these just because I don't want you to have to sit here with it. As a note, when you do have foreign keys, you do have to make sure that the data type is the same because it won't make them if like one is a number and one is a short text, by the way. So make sure that you're paying attention to anything that is a key, primary or foreign, to make sure that you're doing this correctly. We're gonna save that, and then we're gonna create our last one. Okay, this is our funky one. Define view. Okay, so ideally we would have an enroll ID with a course ID and a student. Actually, let's do this. Let's do this like this. Okay, so we've got our student ID and then we've got our grade. Okay, so I'm gonna save this, and then I'm gonna rename this enroll primary key. Okay, now this is just for demo for you. I'm gonna create another one of these tables and I'm gonna call it enroll composite key. So I'll do a CK. We're gonna do a composite key just like they have here with this one. So this one is a course ID, stu ID, and then a grade. Okay, so this one you have to make sure it's a short text because of that. Okay, save and close. Okay, so I'm gonna first go back over here. Okay, so gonna put our student up here, and then we're gonna put our primary key one here. Okay, so this is the easier version of this, where we go course ID, boop, boop, student ID, boop, boop. Okay. What is nice about this one? There's no weird composite key thing going on. The key is clear, just like in everything else that we've done. Okay, so we like this. This is what I've been saying is best practice. If we want to do this one, we actually need to change some things in here first. So we're gonna go back over here. I told you I didn't know how to do this because I wasn't sure, because I didn't even try to do this last quarter because yeah, it's not that great. But if you select both of these, so I just hit that and then did a shift and selected both of these, and you right click it, you can make both of them the primary key that way. So basically, even though these are both foreign keys, now they're both primary keys. Okay, and you can see that down here, now they're both required. Database tools, relationships. Okay, now when I go course ID and student ID, boop, boop, I can do that. So these are both correct. So I just want to iterate that these are both correct. This is our preferred method. This one, I mean, it looks cleaner in a way. There's one fewer columns in there. But yeah, we generally don't prefer that. Okay, so that is my quick rundown. So biggest things here is to make sure that you are you're enforcing the referential integrity, because if you do create your tables using DDL, you actually do have to come back in here and reinforce the referential integrity. If you created the tables without putting in the foreign keys, then you'll have to come in here and create the relationships. And when it's all said and done, you should rearrange these things to be sensible and make that flow. I generally try to keep the boxes here appropriately sized so they don't take excessive room. So yeah, so that's mostly why I wanted to make sure that you got here. And all of those same rules really apply to any of these types of platforms. Okay, so now with that out of the way, and I do recommend that you practice, especially the Libre folks, recreating a database in that fashion, just so that you get the hang of that. But now let's get into the actual content for this week, SQL.